Steppenwolf, Magic Carpet Ride. That was obviously the long psychedelic version. So sometimes when playing songs live on air, you get versions that you're not quite used to sometimes. So there you go. That was the I guess the longer psychedelic one. And you're listening to Willow Willis on Fab Radio International. Now I was just talking to the wonderful Dee Rendell, who just completely blew my tiny little mind a little earlier, and actually did what she said was she mentioned something about a book that I'm actually in the final edit of it now. My book is called The Teenage Human Race, and the subtitle of it is We Are Not the Children of God Anymore. So I hope to have that one up and running very shortly. But actually, it's interesting that she mentioned about the book, because I'm actually doing a retrospective this evening. It's a celebrity retrospective on Christopher Reeve, and this is actually an excerpt from my book. So this is on Christopher Reeve, the actor, I've talked about the magic of television and movies before, and I also want to cover off on the so-called coincidences and synchronicities which can manifest in positive or negative ways. And we live in a world of dualism, which is personified by fiction and non-fiction, which is really one and the same. One man's fact is another man's fiction, and vice versa. Christopher Reeve was a man who throughout his life he would forever seek to gain his father's approval, who had remarried when young Christopher was only 4 years old. And although Christopher was already a high achiever, he propelled himself into mega stardom when he probably just wanted love and validation from his father, like so many other celebrities. Reeve had an elite education and was undoubtedly highly connected through his family. Despite this, he just couldn't seem to get a break in the big time, no matter how hard he worked. And then suddenly, he made a big name for himself and became Superman. Is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's the dark machinations of Hollywood. There is a famous curse associated with Superman. The original idea was sold for $25. The original series hero, played by a man who, quote-unquote, coincidentally had almost the identical name as Christopher Reeve, George Reeves. Now, George Reeves died under mysterious circumstances, found naked with a gun between his feet, and like so many other celebrity deaths, this was written off as a suicide when many believe it was a murder, and we all know what happened to Christopher Reeve. In my opinion, people who propel themselves into celebrity are stricken by deep feelings of insecurity and the need to be loved. And this monstrous industry feeds on emotionally needy, insecure types who often fall prey to the insidious traps of fame exactly as they are meant to. Despite all his success, Christopher went into equestrian competition to further prove himself, and interestingly enough, again, the man had an allergic reaction to horses, which says something about taking hints from nature. On one fateful day, a simple jump caused the horse to seize, and this was ultimately considered rider error, whereby the rider isn't confident enough to lead the horse into the jump, and as such the horse distrusts the rider and pulls up at the last moment. Somehow his hands got tangled in the reins of the horse, and he couldn't break his fall in yet another unlucky aspect of this strange story. Christopher Reeve's massive 6'4" frame and 225-pound muscular bulk came crashing down on his neck, dislodging his head from his first and second cervical vertebrae, disconnecting his skull from his spine and snapping his spinal cord. Doctors literally fused his skull to his neck bones with wires and screws, and while it might seem tasteless, it brings a whole new dimension to forgetting your head if it wasn't screwed on, aka the forgetful and clumsy alter ego of Superman, Clark Kent, in yet another quirky coincidence. When he was delirious after the accident, he would say, "Get the gun, they're coming," which is an odd thing to say under any circumstances and reminds me of a story told by Dave Chappelle when he asked an audience why one particular celebrity was found in the street waving a gun around saying, "They're trying to kill me." Also, Randy Quaid tried to flee to Canada and claimed he was being pursued by what he called quote-unquote star whackers, people who kill celebrities when they are worth more dead than alive. And so it seems, sadly for us, Superman was not, after all, Superman, or the Man of Steel. Just like George Reeves, he was indeed flesh and blood. Interestingly, the original Superman, George Reeves, seemed to be, by Hollywood standards, an unusually moral person who wouldn't even smoke cigarettes around children so as to not set a bad example as they looked up to his role model as Superman. Christopher Reeve also displayed a moral compass as he outlined that after the first Superman film, there was a conscious decision made that no one get killed in the scripts, while he described Rambo as being more of a comic book character than Superman. Hollywood movie stars don't get to choose their scripts, as we are led to believe, and often have to engage in all manner of politics to trade roles they are forced to do with roles that have some merit, until you become like Brad Pitt, begrudgingly doing whatever shit they force you to do, while otherwise shunning the entire industry with contempt. Paul Walker did the same thing, and it cost him dearly. It seems the image of the peace-loving Superman experienced character assassinations as soon as the film franchise ended, as in yet another bizarre twist, Christopher Reeve went on to play a number of very dark characters. Reeve played a character called Detective Dempsey Cain in a pre-accident movie titled Above Suspicion in 1995, who is paralysed and wheelchair-bound after being shot in the line of duty. Remember, this was pre-accident and rather ironic to be sure. In fact, he played a few strange roles, one where he was a pedophile in Bump in the Night in 1991 and a child killer in Death Dreams in 1991. Once you understand more about how movies are being used to lure the whole world down the dark path, suddenly Superman, the original movie and series, takes on a whole new dimension of importance. I am now a fan when I wasn't before, and now for the guts and glory, Superman is an archetype of the personification of possibilities hidden in mankind, which are connected to the secrets of our ancient heritage. If esoteric researchers turn out to be correct, we might just be, after all, supermen and women of a super nature ourselves, for real. I believe this is exactly what we are, hence the elaborate hoax to keep us ensnared in this 5-sense 3D world. The horrible death of Christopher Reeve is embedded in our minds and is a symbolic assassination of the positive power found in the image and name of Superman. The now destructive image is embedded into our collective psyche and seeks to break our spirit in very deep places inside our hearts and minds. So many of our heroes are tragically killed, while evil seems to live long and prosper, but not for much longer. If we could unlock this riddle of ourselves, and if anomalies in our genome, as well as the illusion of the holographic universe are true, we could potentially be capable of nothing less than the actual powers portrayed in Superman. The wonderful Jordan Maxwell outlined that there was some connection between the coincidences of both the Supermans and their names, Christopher and George. These powers are also displayed in the movie The Matrix, when Neo finally realizes that quote-unquote reality is not real, and therefore anything is possible. Could extreme circumstances of life and death cause our minds to bend reality when we momentarily forget the so-called natural laws of gravity, and thus explain the impossible feats of strength? For example, a wimpy teenager lifting a 2,000-pound car off his trapped father. If you forget what you were taught to believe about the laws, the so-called laws of physics, does that make anything possible? Maybe this has nothing to do with hysterical strength, as some believe it to be, and everything to do with quote-unquote reality being a holographic construct that can be altered with the power of our minds, and that everything we are taught in school, including scientific so-called laws, is designed to steer us away from our true potential. Is it all possible with our minds? Fascinatingly, in the mind-blowing film Unbreakable with Bruce Willis, this idea was convincingly outlined in a believable and straightforward manner, that superhumans could possibly be found in ordinary people in the everyday world, but they just don't know it. The premise of Unbreakable was that for every super weak person, there is someone in equal opposition who are super strong. And why not? Indeed, mind control subjects and all manner of secret scientific experiments seek to unlock these very traits using torture, limits of endurance, pain threshold tolerance, pleasure-pain reversal, and breaking points, as well as drugs, in order to peer inside the secret powers of human potential to unlock the infinite universe and the Superman within. There is some sort of evil, malignant presence, and it seems to hate us for our potential, and it plays with our childlike emotions. It's envious of our talents, like an oversized schoolyard bully who constantly picks on the small sensitive kid. Metaphorically, they stole our Superman and snapped off his head and gave us back a broken doll. In the endless possibilities of our dreamy subconscious minds, the Man of Steel was turned into a talking head on a dead body, a freak with no power, a former champion, reduced to a weakling, a mere mortal. And that is a deep wound to the collective psyche of man. They destroy us and our world as we stand idle, helpless, and unable to unlock the powers inside ourselves in order to put a stop to it all, unable to tear away from their hypnotic gaze as they force us to participate in our own end. Fiction is our kryptonite, and we have been mind-controlled into ineptitude, prone with confusion, stricken with fear, and hamstrung by indecision. But as the good witch in the mind-bending Wizard of Oz said, you don't need to be helped any longer. You've always had the power. When Christopher Reeve finally died, it was actually a relief. It was unbearable to watch. Merciful death finally released him from that deformed nightmare, and secretly we were glad our hero was dead. Put out of his misery like a lame old dog. Bind and bind again. Maybe the message here is that before the end, we too will invite our end and be done with it. However, the human race is going to get out of this is anyone's guess, but we do get out of it in the end, in a miraculous turn of events that no one saw coming. As I might add, that Dee Rendell just mentioned before, she said that there's some sort of a shocking twist here. In killing Superman, they've attempted to kill some secret hope buried in us that we too are not just ordinary people, but each and every one of us in deeper spiritual places of our psyches are potentially supermen and women waiting to emerge, whose roots go back to our proud ancestors, whose powers rivaled that of Superman in a time long forgotten. But then they also insist we're the offspring of monkeys. Can they be any more insulting? But it's not real, and you must remember that. This is why more recent versions of Superman have taken a dark twist, like Star Trek, Batman, Spider-Man, and so many other superheroes have taken a dark turn for the worse. There's a reason for that. The world is on the precipice of something truly amazing, and maybe we need to see the darkness before we can appreciate the light. This is the time when you draw on all of your knowledge, on all of your personal strengths and talents, on all of your accumulated information, and remind yourself that you have a choice between fear and love. And never forget what Bill Hicks said. He said, don't be afraid, not ever, because it's all just a ride. In other words, it's just an experience, and we can get through this, all of us, together. And you're listening to Willow Willis on Fab Radio International. This is the Bangles, Hazy Shade of Winter.